the share of the world's population living under autocracy increased from 48 to 68%. It is more important than ever to understand how autocracies work. Autocrats have a keen interest in promoting the idea that they are all-powerful. Whereas leaders in democracies can be removed via elections, leaders in autocracies can lose office in two ways: via a coup or popular revolt. To make matters worse, autocrats can rarely address both threats at the same time. They often have to choose whether to reward their elite cronies to prevent a coup or the masses to prevent a revolt. This generates many difficult trade-offs. Cheat too little on elections and risk losing office, but cheat too much and signal weakness to your opponents. Use corruption to reward your elite friends, but not so much that it slows economic growth and sparks a revolt. Manipulate the media, but not so much that people turn off the television. Repress your political opponents, but not so much that it causes a backlash. Empower the security services, but not so much that they can overthrow you. Rulers who fail to resolve these trade-offs often suffer the consequences.
Tissue engineering. What is it? It's an emerging field, interdisciplinary field that combines engineering and life sciences to create functional biological structures that can restore and improve tissue function. Examples include bladders, trachea, blood vessels, and if you look at it, printing as a technology has also gone through the revolution, and well, it's been around for hundreds of years. In the last couple of decades, it's been a new dimension. We can now print layer by layer in materials ranging from plastic to metal, to concrete, to chocolate, from the smallest scales to the largest. If you take 3D printing and we combine it with biology, we have bioprinting, where the building blocks are cell aggregates where we called bioling particles that are composed of thousands of cells that can fuse together into different shapes. These geometries can include multi-layered sheets, such as skin, branching tubes for vasculature, and the sophistication of this manufacturing technology improves daily to include different cell types and different shapes. And now, why is it important? The pharmaceutical industry at the moment is in a moment of crisis. It spends more money each year on R&D, but has fewer drugs to show for it. It takes more than a decade, more than $1 billion to develop a new drug, and the cost of a failure can be measured in hundreds of millions of dollars. Listen to a discussion in a music history class. The class is studying improvisation. Every jazz player knows what he or she means by improvisation. And all writers know what they mean by improvisation. The result, of course, is a lot of confusion and disagreement about what improvisation really is. We hear about the different types of improvisation, free improvisation, and controlled improvisation and collective improvisation. What does it all mean? Yes, Mary. My dictionary says improvise means to compose or recite without preparation. That's true, but it tells us only part of the story. As we know, musicians learn how to play their instruments before they could improvise. So they do have some preparation. Yes, Arthur. Maybe a better definition is composing and performing at the same time. That tells us another part of the story. Let's try to understand it more by looking at history. Long-term exposure to noise can lead to loss of hearing. The relative loudness of sounds is measured in decibels. Just to give you an idea of what this means. The sound of a whisper is 30 decibels, while a normal conversation is 60 decibels. The noise a vacuum cleaner makes is around 85 decibels. The danger zone, the risk of injury, begins at around 90. Continual exposure to sound above 90 decibels can damage your hearing. Loud noises, especially when they come at you every day. All this noise can damage the delicate hair cells in your inner ear. Lots of everyday noises are bad for us in the long run. For example, a car horn sounds at around 100 decibels. A rock band at close range is 125 decibels. A jet engine at close range is one of the worst culprits at an ear-busting 140 decibels. The first thing to go is your high-frequency hearing, where you detect the consonant sounds in words. That's why a person with hearing loss can hear voices, but has trouble understanding what's being said. Exercise is like fertilizer for your brain. All those hours spent on exercising your muscles create rich capillary beds not only in leg and hip muscles, but also in your brain. More blood vessels in your brain and muscles mean more oxygen and nutrients to help them work. When you pedal, you also force more nerve cells to fire. The result? You double or triple the production of these cells, literally building your brain. You also release neurotransmitters, the messengers between your brain cells, so all those cells, new and old, can communicate with each other for better, faster functioning. That's a pretty profound benefit to cyclists.
Excuse me, is this seat free?
Yes.
Thanks.
My name is Mrs. Smith. It is nice to meet you.
Hi Mrs. Smith, my name is Mr. Bean, it's nice to meet you too.
Where are you from, Mr. Bean? You sound like you not from England.
I am from Thailand. I have been visiting my family in Manchester. How about you?
Same as every day at this time on my way to work, as usual.
What do you do?
I am an English teacher. My students love learning English. How about you?
I am also an English teacher, but I'm on holiday right now.
Drinking has long been tied to university settings, which may make alcohol a more acceptable substance choice for students planning to attend university, said Leatherdale. All substances present risks to health and well-being. With marijuana legalization on the horizon, it's critical we understand these risks in order to promote successful transitions into adulthood for our youth. The study also looked at the effects of alcohol use on academic aspirations and expectations. Unlike marijuana, students initiating regular alcohol use tended to report goals to pursue post-secondary education.
It seems to me that architecture is pretty much something that causes us both pleasure and trouble. I live in the part of Western London where I think many of the streets are really ugly, and this distresses me every time when I walk to a supermarket or walk to the tube. I do not understand why they built those buildings without architecture. A bad building has a serious impact on the people around it, which could be hundreds of years. It lasted so long, and if you write a bad book or a bad play, I will be shocked when it was shown. Suppose the book arose a little bit from the frustration, and then I realize if you talk about architecture, you will say why building are not more beautiful. Then you will say I can use such work as beauty, which is a really arrogant word. And no one knows what beautiful is. It's all in the eye of the beholder. I couldn't help but think about that actually. Well, you know that we all attempt to agree that Rome is nice than Milky Kings, and San Francisco has the edge of Frankfurt, so we can make that sort of generalization. Surely there is something we can say about why a building works or why it doesn't. So the books really attempt to suggest why architecture works when it does and what might go wrong when it doesn't work.
pancake ice is an intermediate step between an open water configuration and a totally frozen body of water. We know that a combination of very cold temperatures and waves is necessary to make the pancakes form in the first place. After these waves make it form, there's an entire spectrum, so a wide collection of frequency waves that they would encounter, whether they be from wind shear or they'd be from that the ocean long slow waves. The easiest way to study it is to look at each individual range of frequencies one after another. Sort of gain a wider perspective on how the pancake ice interacts with waves. The ultimate aim of our research is to better inform the meteorological modelers of the world who are looking at Antarctica as well as the Arctic and some of the other cold regions of the world. We're conducting work in the Sea Ice Wind Wave Interaction Facility here at UNIME-IB. It was designed by the head of our department, Jason Monti. He had the foresight to use a modular design, which means there are individual sections that are stacked together, so since we're built to the space that we have in this lab right now. When we move to Fisherman's Bend, we can extend our model in a few more sections to make it much longer. And that will enable us to have longer runtimes, have more developed waves as well as add some other possibilities of study. We are going to discuss mitosis. Mitosis is a process of cell division as a result of cell division. Two daughter cells are produced from a single parent cell. The daughter cells are identical to one another, and to the original parent cell. Mitosis includes 4 phases called prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Let's discuss each phase here. In prophase, each chromosome duplicates to form 2 sister chromatid. In metaphase, the chromosomes line up at the equatorial plate and are held by microtubules. And the centromere. In anaphase, the centromere is divide and sister chromatid, separate and move toward the matching poles. Finally, in telophase, daughter chromosomes arrived at the poles and the microtubules disappear. The chromatin expands, the cytoplasm divides, and the cell membrane pinches inward, producing two daughter cells.
I have a problem with my political science class. Literally. I know nothing about it and regret taking it. I should have dropped the class. Calm down. James, students take classes to learn. I know. But I am so clueless. I am just not so into the politics, constitution and laws, and again the words are so confusing to me. Jane, let me tell you something based on my experience. You just need to try. You know the words may sound difficult, but they are not at all that difficult. Once you get familiar with the vocabulary, basic laws and events, political science is a very interesting and easy subject. On top of that, you have me to help you. Do you really think so? Yes, I'm sure everything's up to you. If you think positively and put effort into it, everything will become easy.
Hiroshi Ishiguro, a robot engineer from Osaka University, makes Geminoids so extremely realistic human robots. It's important that they look exactly like real people for Ishiguro to carry out his research. He's interested in understanding philosophical questions such as what is identity and what might happen if a person and their robot double were able to be in two places at the same time. His Gemini, Drogue, Ox have rubber skin, and their heads are controlled by motors. These move the head, blink, twitch, shrug the shoulders, and make the robot appear to be breathing. During conversations, as well as this, there are motors which are connected to a computer, microphone and camera. These scan the controller's voice and face movements, then send messages back to the robot which copies them. The robot's body and skin stop at his chest though, and he has no robotic legs, so you won't see him.
Our oceans are really very well traveled on the surface, but in terms of the deep sea, it's probably the one area of our planet that hasn't been explored. The first visit by a human to the ocean floor was in 1960 when the U.S. Navy sent a vehicle to the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the ocean. Anyway, what exactly do we know about the deep sea? Well, we define it as 200 meters below the surface of the ocean. And around that point sunlight begins to disappear and temperatures begin to drop 1,000 meters and beyond. There's complete darkness, very little oxygen, and pressures that are 1,000 times greater than at the Earth's surface. However, somehow it's full of life that has a huge effect on our own lives, because half of the oxygen we breathe is generated by living things in the ocean. So in the future, scientists are going to try and find out more about
For some people, this proposition may seem far-fetched, but ending poverty is both morally necessary and actually feasible. All of us must play a role in making it happen. All human beings want, and have a right to live in dignity, to determine our own destinies, and to be respected by other people. Despite the universality of these rights, our capacities to fulfill them vary enormously, and no dividing line is more profound in influencing the quality of our lives than the gulf between poverty and prosperity.
No, and that's an important aspect. As you alluded to earlier, we've previously done work which has proven that in some situations, even people whose blood pressure is not high, can benefit from blood pressure lowering therapy. So in this study the main reason that we included the patients was because of diabetes. We didn't care what their blood pressure was, whether it was high or low. And our objective was to see whether or not lowering average or below average blood pressure in diabetics was beneficial, and the result suggested that irrespective of whether your blood pressure was high or low, if you had diabetes you benefited.
Half of television output is given away for educational programs. Half of television output is given away for educational programs. Further research should be established whether this trend is significant. Further research should be established whether this trend is significant. High fees caused students to look more critically at what universities offer. High fees caused students to look more critically at what universities offer. A gradual increase occurred between October and December. A gradual increase occurred between October and December.